Hey Creagears, Robert here, and welcome back to a brand new video. Yeah, so sorry about this, Creagears. Recently I was hard at work with finishing my college. During this final stretch, it required a lot more time than I at first thought. So this is why it's been so freaking long since we made a new video. That combined with the project that we were currently working on. Because right after I finished college, there were a lot of cons around the Netherlands. So I was aiming to finally get a new cosplay together for these cons, which was a cosplay of Iso Padre. Sadly, the first con, Dutch Comic Con, was a little too early for the costume to be done in time. But luckily for us, we were able to finish it on time for the big one, Dokumi! But alas, this did not go completely as planned. Because unfortunately, the stitches that made up the belt that I had on my shoulders to hold up most of the cosplay snapped. I was able to quickly fix this by tying some nuts to hold it all together, but these would not hold all of the weight in place and would slowly start to shift back. Luckily this did not snap apart, but the aluminium frame that I'd used on the inside did receive a lot of stress thanks to this shift in weight. This, and just too little and weak supports in general, made it so that the cosplay just fell apart after only 2.5 hours of wear. So we do have a project to show to you guys, but this does mean that not only does it show a version of the cosplay that essentially does not work, but thanks to the very short wear time, we also do not have any good photos of the finished cosplay. But we hope that you guys would still like to see what we did to come this far, about my plan of approach, when I will remake the cosplay at a later date. But also do stick around to the end, because we might not have a complete view of the cosplay, but I did manage to get a few segments in with Iso Padre. So hopefully you guys will still look forward to that. And the first one we show off is immediately wrong. For the first version of this cosplay, we made the shell of Iso Padre from foam board, which in theory was a good idea. A sturdy, lightweight and especially cheap material that's easy to work with sounds perfect! But thanks to all of the shifting that the shells did during the assembly, during transport, during walking around, the shells just came under a lot of stress that just did not match the angles that we'd cut into them. This made it so that some of the panels even snapped loose and others just bent in all kinds of crazy ways. Even with the bigger bending that the total amount of pieces were allowed to do, it was just not enough to make it hold its shape well enough. So for the next time I'm planning to get some more EVA foam like we'd used for the nose of Iso Padre right here. By also using a higher density foam, I hope that I can make the pieces a lot more sturdier, more flexible, and not increase the weight by too much, since it was already getting pretty heavy to carry around. But by doing like we're doing here and using the flat patterns from the foam board versions, cutting these from the EVA foam sheet, we can then glue the notches together and make each piece curve into the right shape. Luckily, the foam board worked a lot better for the extra arms. As one of the eye catchers for the cosplay, I really wanted to show off Iso Padre's 6 arms. So instead of just sewing them, filling them with stuffing, and attaching them crossed over to the body, I really wanted to make them move with my real arms. So for the filling of those, I made 20 of these foam board cones. I then used the 3D model from the game to get the patterns for stuff like the shells and the snout that you saw earlier, but also the hands. These were also made from EVA foam, and the 4 of these were then combined with 4 of the cones. The rest of these get attached to either side of a cylinder, made to match the diameter and the length of my original arm. These 3 pieces per arm were then strung together using some paracord, which was then glued to the inside of Iso's body at the pivot points. Railboy reminder, next time weave the paracord through before closing the cylinders. That's gonna make it a lot easier to weave the wire through. At least in the meantime, the 3D printer was able to help me out a lot with the accessories. Stuff like his big red button, or this cute little watch that I'd made to go onto my arms when I wear the cosplay. And if you also want one, I'll leave the STL files for those in the description. So for people who just want to make a more human-like version of him, or just want to have the watch or any of the other accessories, you can print those yourself. Just probably print them at like 50% or something, because as you can see with the glasses, these are quite big for a human. But as soon as I'd remove the masking tape, these will look very nicely on the cosplay. And the last of the accessories is actually a non-canon one. But since these things are Iso Padre's eyes, and during the cosplay I'm also only allowed vision through there, I had to do something else for sight to be able to safely walk around the con, or I might trip over all of the artist stalls there. Because in the cosplay, I literally have raptor vision, like I cannot see straight ahead of me. So I'd made this little blobfish button that can be friction fitted onto a webcam that I'd put together for the Octobot. These were then attached via a hole into the body to allow the webcam to face outwards and send the video feed to an old phone that I'd used as a screen on the inside. If I'd known that the cosplay would only last so shortly, I would have recorded some snippets earlier. Huge missed opportunity. However, that might not have mattered too much, since the button was not well enough attached, so the webcam just constantly fell down as the main body just kept on folding into itself. But another thing to fix before the next wear. Luckily for me, the fake leather that I'd ordered for the shells worked perfectly. Finally a little victory. It was such a good fit to cover all of the shells of Iso Padre. However, gluing onto the smooth side was almost impossible as soon as the fuzzy backside was hot glued to the foam board. So for next time, I'm probably gonna make it 3 big pieces for the shell and cover those all at once, as to have one sturdier hole, and that way I can also make a perfect pattern for the fabric instead of the pieces that I just glued on for the foam board shells. Like here, I just roughly checked to make sure the piece would cover all of the shell before I just started to cut it out and glue it onto the foam board. Which resulted a few times into me needing to stretch out the fabric a ton to get it to cover enough of the foam board. But despite the few creases thanks to this process, and the polygonal look to the shells thanks to the way the stiff foam board made them, it did not look half bad. Especially with the glasses. Then I had already worked a lot on the face, made from some more foam board and contact cement. More of this was then also used to make the whiskers of Iso Padre. By covering the ends of a 20mm EVA foam dowel, I could cover this with a layer of 5mm EVA foam, and continue to thicken this with another layer on top of that. Using these layers, I was able to grind out the more organic shapes of the whiskers from these dowels. All 4 of these were then finished with a grindstone bit, and with a small piece removed from the back, I glued one short and one long one together. And both of these were then attached to each side of the snout. Then, to finish the face, I took the eyes from the 3D model and smoothed them out. Then I covered these 3D prints with aluminium foil to hopefully protect them a little bit more, to shape these sheets of plastic cross-stitch canvas to work as the eyes. Since the cross-stitch fabric that I'd used on the Big Man cosplay does not allow for enough light to pass through, in my opinion. Luckily, these meshes let a lot more light through without revealing too much of the inside. But after a 3-minute visit to a 120 degrees Celsius oven, I was able to remove them from the parchment paper, and with some thick gloves for protection, I was able to hold the mesh over the buck for long enough to shape it to the eyes. Now all that was left is to cut away the excess, and after a quick pass over with a sanding sponge to rough up the smooth surface, I could lastly remove it from the back. After which all that was left was to glue the final details to the body of Iso Padre, like the eyes, and yes, all of these body pieces were made from a pattern from the original model. All 27 A3 sheets for only half the body. And with that, I could finally add the 2 layers of primer and apply the paint to the face and the chest. Here I'd also made a mistake by cheaping out on the brand of primer for the EVA foam by going for the one from the cosplay website where I also get my foam from. This made it so it still showed a lot of imperfections on the standard edges of the face. Even after some foam clay fixes, lots of high grit sandpapers, the stone bit, just nothing seemed to work. So next time I'm going to get some plastic dip and just use 3 or more layers of primer before I add the paint to hopefully get a smoother face. Because that was something I wasn't really too happy with Iso Padre. You know, after the whole falling apart thing. And here you can also immediately see another problem with the body. See how it all tries to fall upon itself like an accordion? This was the big problem during the actual wear of the cosplay. The vertical supports of the body just were not strong enough to hold it all up. So for the next iteration, I'm going to make use of some thicker steel supports and make them all just one piece and one circle, instead of a mishmash of like big pieces of aluminium that just needed to be extended just a little bit further. Yeah, just that just didn't work out. On the positive side, at least the color was a good match. However, as I was painting it on, it actually did not differ too much from the white primer, with the gray still showing through, which was kind of worrying. But as soon as we added the shells, it all worked out in the end. With all of the pieces ready, next up were the fabrics. We already had a preview of that with the shells, but for the close of Iso Padre, I wanted to use some actual patterns. With almost half a roll of aluminium foil and 1.5 rolls of masking tape, I was able to make a pattern for half of the body. Luckily, this was enough to get started on the sewing with this twill cotton in both black for the 3-piece suit and the pants, and white for the undershirt and the little ends on the sleeves. This then resulted in a lot of sewing for both the underside of the body with the pants, or like the 6 holes that we needed to cut into the suit for the arms. Also, do not forget about these nice white sleeves that I'd also sewn to the gloves that I made to go over the EVA foam hands. Then I could finally pin all of the fabrics around the EVA foam body and glue it to the edges with a little bit of scoring, and after that a lot of hot glue. First pinning it around the back before I could come to the front. To first close off the white undershirt. Then I could pin the left side of the suit. Before I close it all off with the right side of the suit. And yes, it did work to walk around for a little bit. I just need to make the belts that hold it all up as one piece, to fix the snapping stitches, and to make the holes that my legs go in just a little bit bigger, so that I have a little bit of an easier time walling around. Now all that was left was to assemble the rest of the shells with this technique of using a very wide belt of fabric and gluing this to the foam board on the inside of the shells, because, as said earlier, it does not stick to the platter. Then I could apply a coat to the other half of this fabric and attach the pieces one by one. Resulting in a tail like this, only missing the end plate and the 2 little fins on each side. Then it was finally time to place the big bag on top of the cosplay, and to be honest, here I already had kind of a panic attack about how I was gonna get this attached before Heroes Dutch Comic Con in 2 days. And I should have already seen how much pressure this placed upon the face, and that this without a metal support would just not hold. Especially when, as soon as I had applied the hot glue to attach the shell to the face, it just all fell apart again. Even contact cement could just barely hold it. And literal screws and tons of hot glue only helped a little bit. Yeah, next time I'm just gonna need to make it all one solid piece first, before I start to apply the paints and the fabrics. With an extra strong vertical frame that goes through the whole body, as well as the face. At least the hand sewing of the hands to the sleeves went well. or the 6 giant buttons to the suit, or the 24 small buttons on the sleeves, or the transparent fishing wire that goes through the sleeves to connect each set of arms to my own. But sadly, it was all just not meant to be this time. At least I've learned a whole lot about this cosplay and what I need to improve for next time. And just really make some time to make a test run first. I'm still just really sad about it though. This was the first time that a project of mine really felt big like this. Where thanks to these few mistakes, literally half of the project can literally just be thrown away. Just the platter alone I looked up. But at least the short time I did get to wear it, it at least made some fun memories. Like this really cute piece of art that I'd received during my walking around in cosplay from Griefang_ on Twitter. Or when I was walking around, there were some guys that approached me and one of them just gave me a hand and then another one, and then they saw that all 3 of my hands were connected, so all of them could give me a handshake at the same time. Or, like to get from the parking to the con, we had to make use of a shuttle bus. In cosplay!
Watch out for the drop, watch out for the drop.
More. Okay, next step is yes.
Yes, that went better than it.
Or when we all came together to do a little bit of deep water fishing. Thanks to our friend Yusei or Kevin for taking all of these videos. Although, this was sadly all of the photographic evidence we have of the cosplay at the con. I've only been able to find little bits of clips in other showcases or on social media, so if by some miracle you find us in cosplay, like in a cosplay video or a tour of Dokami on Saturday, please tag us in the video. Oh, we would love to see as much of it as possible. But hey, at least the lack of media is also a motivator to get going on this cosplay again and make it even better for the next con. So we can get some awesome pictures, so we can show all of you the end result next time. But let's first do a few smaller projects before we lose ourselves again in this cosplay. So, that's going to be all from us for now. Keep those creative gears turning, and we hope to see you all next time, according to our regular schedule. Promise.